Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. This is Zach over at NV Woodwork. So today we're going to be covering 5 tips for setting up your resin casting area. I've been doing this for a while. I've kind of changed around how I set up my casting area, and I recently put up a shop tour video and I left out the casting area, and I said that I was going to be, doing a separate video specifically on the casting setup. And I thought, rather than me just take a camera and show you a bunch of stuff that, how it's set up, how about I pick 5 of the important things and kind of share that with you guys. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to kind of cover things that I think, over the years I've found have been kind of important for me when I'm setting up an area. So hopefully it'll help you guys out when you're setting up your resin casting area, and maybe you'll pick up a tip or two. So let's get started. All right, so for number 1, I think that the table height that you're working at is very important. I think it's actually crucial for me. I do this for kind of extended periods of time. So, maybe if you're only doing 1 batch every month, maybe it's not a big deal. But, if you're setting up a station that is dedicated to casting, I really think that finding the right table height for you is a good idea. And what I've found is, if it's too low, I end up hunching over, and it's not very comfortable, especially for extended periods of time. You're going to kind of get back problems and knee problems and all kinds of stuff. And it just isn't comfortable. And then if it's too high, a couple things. It's uncomfortable. You're working, it's kind of weird working that, at a really high level. The other thing is you're bringing the resin closer to your breathing, and you don't really want to be sniffing the fumes in the first place. So, you want to kind of keep it a little bit away from your face. And you don't want to be splashing it in your eyes. There's more chance of that. So, you want to find a happy medium. And what I've found is if you just take your elbows and put them 90 degrees, the top of your stir stick should be comfortable where you're stirring at that angle. So find whatever height that is in general. And, there's a little bit of variance there, but I would look at, what do you do the most? Find the cups that you usually use, the stir sticks, and what are you doing the most of? Find the kind of comfort zone on that. And I think that you'll find that things are just a little bit easier. It's more natural to stir at that height. And like I said, for extended periods of time, you're going to be able to cast for a lot longer without having problems. Now, number 2, kind of going off of heights of things again. I find that if you can get your pressure pot mounted where, with the lid off, the rim of the pressure pot is pretty close to even to your work surface top, it really makes things a lot easier getting your molds into the pressure pot. If it's on the ground and you have to stoop over, that's probably better than too high, having it too low. But it's still not very comfortable. It's not very fun, having to stoop over and put it way down in there. Now, if you mount it on top of the work surface, what I find is if I have my table height set correctly, then the pot is going to be, a good 12 inches or more above that work surface, and you find yourself having to lift your molds up and over that rim. And I can't tell you how many times I have totally missed. I didn't get it up high enough, and I was rushing, and I've totally just spilled an entire mold into the pressure pot. That is not fun. Even if you're using a rack, it sure isn't fun having to lift that thing up with, especially if you're doing kind of larger molds. It's heavy. It's not very comfortable having to lift it into your pot and over the rim. So if you can get that pot mounted, and I recommend trying to mount your pot so it doesn't twist or move or anything, mount it on a surface where the rim of the pressure pot is pretty close to the work surface where your mold is, then it makes things way easier. Even if you're using a rack, you just basically slide it straight over, down, put the lid on, and you're good to go. Now, number 3, I find it really important to have everything that you need within reach. You can see that I have my dies, my molds, I have my air hose hanging, and I actually have it hung from the ceiling so that I can just lock it right down on my pressure pot. I don't have to worry about that. I keep my resins close, all of the molds and different random kind of stuff, my powders, have it all close at hand, right kind of within reach. The worst thing that you can have is you're like, at the end, you're getting your molds into the pressure pot, and I forgot to have my air hose, so you got to go run across the shop and go get your compressor or something like that. Sometimes you don't have time for these things, and you need to kind of react quickly, grab something, and do it, right then. So try to have everything kind of organized a little bit, have some storage around you. I finally, with this new shop remodel, I finally got a lot of storage. I have a huge storage workbench kind of toolbox thing behind me. I have a couple other things underneath my pressure pots where I can kind of store stuff. And then even other kind of random stuff that I may not need like right while I'm casting are pretty close to me. So if I really, for some reason, needed to grab it, it's not like I got to go across the shop. It's going to make your life a lot easier. Another thing, have paper towels handy, your stir sticks, gloves, all that kind of stuff, the safety. And you might even want to have a fan, going off of safety near you in your area. So that you're not breathing fumes. So try to keep everything kind of close to you, and I think you're going to find that you'll run into less problems for sure. All right, so for number 4, everybody knows that resins are sticky and messy. So it sure is nice if you have a work surface that is non-stick, or at least semi-non-stick. If you're using wood, just like a bench top that has wood on it, if you get little drips and stuff, or bigger spills of resin, it's usually pretty hard to get it off. You can scrape it, but a lot of times you end up ripping the wood fibers break before the resin just pops off. So instead of that, there's a couple of options out there that you can use to cover your workstation or create your tabletop out of. The last iteration that I was using, I actually had an HDPE top. It was 1/2 inch, same stuff that I use for my molds, like the square molds. And that worked pretty good, but I will say that a 1/2 inch thick, pretty big sheet of HDPE is sure not cheap. And I've ended up kind of switching away from that anyway, because there's basically 2 options. There's black color or white, and it just kind of screws things up for the cameras. The black just absorbs all the light, and then white just bounces it straight back at the camera. So I didn't like it very much. And I honestly found that I was using my second suggestion or option out there. Silicone baking mats work perfect, and they're huge. I mean, look at this thing. Obviously you can see that mine's been doing its job pretty nicely. They are super cheap. I just get mine on Amazon, so I'll have a link down in the show notes where I get mine. These things have been working great. They're like I said, pretty cheap, and they're easy to clean up. I mean, you can just, roll it and pick off little things, or another kind of quick way to make quick work of it, pour a full layer of resin, let it, like on top of it, let it sit, and then just peel the entire layer off, and you kind of clean up your mat. It works pretty good. Yes, you're going to waste a little bit of resin doing that, but it sure makes cleaning that thing a lot easier than kind of picking off little nibs of resin. Now, a third option, this is something that I've never done myself, but I think it would work. So it's kind of a, try at your own risk type thing. But I think a metal surface would actually work really well for resin. I don't think it's going to stick very well to metal. Stainless steel, definitely, like, you see in like kitchens, that would probably be pretty awesome. I think you could maybe even just lay down a piece of sheet metal, or maybe even ducting, so just wanted to throw out a third option that might or might not work. I've never actually tried it myself, but I think it probably should work, and for a lot of people might be easier, or you may have a metal topped table that may work perfect. So I just wanted to kind of mention that. All right, so for number 5, it's going to seem pretty obvious, but I wanted to throw this out there because it actually is pretty important to me. And I think that for a lot of people, maybe you haven't thought about it, or, especially people that are planning their casting area, good idea to keep this in your plan. Have a lot of electrical outlets nearby. It doesn't seem maybe like you're going to really use a lot of electricity to do resin casting. However, one of the main things that I use is a toaster. I use this to heat molds. I warm up materials before I cast them. So this is kind of a must, I think, in a casting area. I use my hot glue gun quite a bit. If you have a portable compressor, best idea is to have it pretty close to you. So you may need to plug that in. And there's a host of other things, maybe your computer, or if you are filming stuff, you may need to have your camera equipment plugged in. Who knows? But it's really good to have a good amount of plugs. Just make sure that you don't put your casting area in some corner that has no electricity. It's going to not be very fun having to run an extension cord across the shop. So there's my 5 tips for setting up your casting area. I hope they help out. I know that a lot of them are pretty no-brainer. A lot of people that at least have been casting for a while probably like, really, that's it? And I agree. However, I gotta be honest, when I got started, a lot of these things didn't even dawn on me. They didn't cross my mind because I was too focused on, how does resin casting work? So a lot of these are probably more for beginners. But you know, even I've been casting for like at least 7 years now, and until this last change to my casting area, I didn't have all of my supplies like right at hand. I finally added this toolbox. Now everything is literally right at hand. So, you know, even if you've been doing it a while, it may not cross your mind that, oh yeah, that might be a good idea. So like I said, hopefully it'll help you guys out while you're planning your casting area and setting it up. And if anybody has any questions about my setup, or you know, questions about setting up a casting area, I'd be happy to help out. Leave those in the comment section down below. And if this is your first time on my channel, we do all kinds of resin casting projects, tips and tricks, and experiments around here. So if you're interested in that or getting into casting, definitely hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get notified when new videos get posted, as well as when I go live. I do a weekly live stream where we do experiments or some kind of resin casting thing. So definitely catch that if you want to stop by. And for those of you who are thinking about getting into resin casting, but you're really not sure where to begin, check out my ebook, The Beginner's Guide to Resin Casting. It answers all those beginner questions like, you know, what do I need to get started? How does it all work? It'll help you get over that initial learning curve so you can get into your shop and start doing experiments, having fun with resin yourself. It's available on my website if you're interested. So until next time, guys, thanks for watching this video, and happy casting.